Good afternoon. More, of course, on the presidential questions in Parliament in a moment. But first, the US ambassador to South Africa, Reuben Brigety, says he can bet his own life that a Russian vessel which docked in Simonstown last December loaded weapons and artillery to continue the war in Ukraine. Brigety made the startling claims during a briefing earlier today, which aimed to outline the outcomes of a visit by a delegation sent by President Cyril Ramaphosa to clarify government's stance with Russia. The US also says it takes exception to comments made at the ANC's conference last year and its resolution document on international relations, which has accused the West of provoking the war in Ukraine in an attempt to put Russia in its place. Our senior political reporter Ziyanda Ngcobo was at the US ambassador's briefing. She joins us now. Ziyanda, good afternoon to you. This is startlingly undiplomatic in its language. What claim is the US making?
Startlingly undiplomatic, but also, if you know the cordiality between two countries, it should have been the South African government that would have spoken first about what happened when they went to that high-level meeting with senior officials in the U.S. to explain their stance when it comes to Russia. What precipitated this, it would seem, is, of course, the risk of not having the African Growth and Opportunity Act renewed in 2025, but also the sense that the U.S. has been getting that South Africa, while it claims to be non-aligned when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, they've been behaving in a different way. And this is when the U.S. ambassador then made this claim several times during that briefing in a very assertive, trite tone that he, for a fact, knows that Lady R, when it docked between the 6th and 8th of December last year, was for the sole purpose of loading weapons and artillery, which were then used in the continuing of that war in Ukraine. Let's listen to what he had to say earlier.
The arming of Russia by South Africa with the vessel that landed in Simonstown is fundamentally unacceptable. We are confident that weapons were loaded onto that vessel, and I would bet my life on the accuracy of that assertion. Given that, the deviation from South Africa's policy of non-alignment by the actions of December 6th through December 8th are inexplicable.
So, Stephen, not only has the U.S., Washington, taken exception to this behavior by the South African government, they've also taken aim at the governing party, the African National Congress, holding up literally the ANC's 55th National Conference documents, quoting paragraphs 19 to 24 under the section Building a Better World. And just to briefly go through what that document says, it basically talks about, the ongoing war in Ukraine having far-reaching geopolitical and economic consequences, which we already know, and it can no longer be described as a Russia-Ukraine war. It's primarily a conflict between the U.S. and U.S.-led NATO and Russia in pursuit of the objectives of the so-called Wolfowitz doctrine. And according to this doctrine, then the U.S. should not allow any country to challenge its own interests, in particular its own hegemony. So, and basically they're saying that this is the U.S. geopolitical strategy and has identified Russia and China as two powers that must be contained. Now, this is very important because the ambassador also mentioned, you remember those naval exercises in Richards Bay, Mosi II they called them, and it was Russia and China that were conducting those those naval exercises, I should say, and emphasizing the fact that the timing, you'll remember that it took place around the 24th of February, which was the one-year anniversary since Russia invaded Ukraine. So, the ambassador outlining all these issues, saying South Africa cannot simply say that it's non-aligned, judging by its actions, and saying that the African National Congress, in its own wording, is seemingly taking a hostile approach towards the U.S., and they want to understand why. Let's listen to what he had to say earlier about that.
I think it's fair to say that our government found these remarks to be outrageous, patently false, and incorrect. What is even more disturbing than what was in the ANC conference document as related to the United States of America is what was not in the conference document. In this report, which is roughly 3 centimeters thick, there are all manner of issues that are addressed, both with regard to internal South African politics and international affairs. There is nothing in this document about the value that the ANC places on AGOA. There's nothing in this document about their view of PEPFAR. There's nothing in this document about how the ANC views and appreciates American investment in South Africa.
Our senior political reporter, Ziyanda Ngcobo, thank you very much indeed.